Hi guys, Bor here with another Warlock guide for Last Epoch. In this one I will be talking about how I level up my character in hardcore. I will be dropping here some general tips, but mainly focusing on the skill order and the passive order and how do we switch into the ward at the later stage of the game. So, when we look at the skills we are getting early. Level 2, Summon Skeleton. You will be running with those bad boys for a while. You can summon 3 of them. At level 3 you get Marrow Shards. This is a skill we completely skip. And at level 4 it's our Lord and Savior, Wandering Spirits. This will be the first skill we're gonna actually specialize and start putting points into. More about it later. Then as we go, we unlock more skills, Harvest we will ignore. Then at level 5 we're gonna get Hungering Souls. This is another skill that we're gonna use for a while, because it synergizes very well with 3 skeletons we will be running. Then of course we unlock Bone Curse. Then level 9 we get the access to movement skill. Now at level 10 we're gonna get the Summon Bone Golem, but because we're gonna use Hungering Souls that require exactly 3 minions, this is the one I will be skipping. And then at level 15 is where our damage is gonna get ramped even more with the Spirit Plague. This is gonna be a second skill we're gonna specialize into. And then as we go, we're gonna unlock our Warlock Mastery and gain access to Chtonic Fissure. This is the moment where I drop Wandering Spirits and I specialize into Chtonic Fissure. Now as we go, I don't care about any of those skills here. Only skill we're gonna be care about will be Profane Veil at level 35, and that will be the moment when we try to start our Consuming Ward combo. Now at level 20, skill I specialize into is gonna be Transplant, mainly to gain haste, but also to get bone armor. More about it later. At 35 is gonna be the Bone Curse. And then level 50 is the moment where we go for the Profane Veil specialization. Alright, so that was short overview of general leveling strategy with the skills. Now let's talk a bit about items we can use. You definitely want to look for Scepter or one that gives you the most spell damage possible. Even if it's gonna be based like this, just a normal common item. The higher the flat spell damage on this item, the more damage you're gonna deal, and you always should prioritize above anything else. Unless the difference is like 1-2 points, then of course look for the weapon that gives you increased damage. So while in town, don't forget to visit the vendor. Stuff you're looking for is any item with health regen. There is basic relic that gives you 2 or 3 health regen in the implicit. This is very good one. As I said, anything that gives you extra spell damage is very good. In this case we can get the one that gives us also cast speed. It's very good. Now we of course want to get shield here. We're not gonna run Catalyst early. The best one you can get early is the Torch that gives you also elemental resistance. Now of course if there's nice ring here we can replace. There's no harm in changing this jade ring into the silver ring. I'm gonna have more movement speed and then try to fill up any other slot here with any gear you have. As you can see I have nice gloves with extra armor and increased health regen, so those are very nice starting ones. And there is insane for leveling body armor here. As you can see it has more armor, gives you some mana, so instant upgrade, but also the +1 to Wandering Spirit is not too shabby. Now we have very nice helmets. This one is very good for early. It gives us 8 physical resistance, so we're gonna buy this and don't even think about it. And the only 2 items I'm missing here are boots. And well, there's actually relic here, increased spell damage, but we don't have any more money here, so I can't buy it, which is still fine. So this is like very early nice setup for me. As you can see we have 90% armor reduction. If I remove some of the items we just bought here, you can see we're actually dropping a bit. Now early game is not really that hard, so we should be fine either way, but it's nice to get that extra armor so we can go a bit faster. So as we continue our journey here, as I mentioned, the Torch is the item I'm looking for as my shield, so that's gonna keep my elemental resistances at higher level. Another great item will be the quest gloves. We will get those gloves in Act 2. Here is probably a good moment to explain how the resistance system works. So if I press tab here and disable minimap, you can see area level 3. So how resistances work in Last Epoch is monsters gain a resistance penetration equal to the area level. In short, to make sure you're not gonna get get any extra damage from monsters, you should match the resistance value to the area level you are right now. This caps at 75%, and it's not the end of the world if you're missing few points in the resistance, but if you don't want to risk it, you should always try to match this. The most important resistance you should always try to keep at higher value is the physical resistance. Almost all of the monsters, when they're gonna hit you, they're gonna deal some physical damage. Then in chapter 2 and 3, we're gonna see a lot of void monsters. So during your journey in chapter 1, you should try to find items with void resistance. Now, chapter 4 is where necrotic resistance come into the equation. Chapter 5 is where poison resistance is gonna be pretty important. I'm not sure what they did with damage over time, but bleed and poison is actually dealing heavy damage to your character, so be very careful in that area. It's the area where you start on the beach and go through the desert. If you see those small scorpions there, be very careful to not jump into them. They will inflict a lot of stacks and your character probably will not be able to survive it, even with few potions. A damage really hurts. And of course, fire, lightning, cold resistance. This is gonna be more important in the later stages of the campaign. Mainly chapter 7 is where we're gonna see a lot of fire and cold monsters. Then in chapter 8 there will be a lot of lightning monsters too. But usually it's very good to match those resistances to the area level, just not to risk random one-shot. Now, of course, armor is very important. If you get items with higher armor, always try to equip them. I talk about the spell damage in our case. And other than that, when it comes to gear, very important stat early is health regen. If you find item with health regeneration, you should almost always make use of it. You don't have much life early. You can see 172 on this character right now, with some extra bonuses we found on the gear. So that 3 to 6 health regen is actually gonna be huge game changer. And then as you go, try to look for items that give you resistances, which is pretty obvious, and any item that gives you health. Now, if you find stuff like shield chance or frailty chance and you're using skill that hits, those also gonna be very good. For looking for damage options, any ailment is very good in early campaign. That means like bleed, ignite, poison sources. This is gonna ramp your damage a bit, helps you go a little faster. But in this build, main source of the damage gonna be actually your skills. Alright, let's talk about how you're gonna progress your skills while you start leveling. So we start with the Reblood. It's not a bad skill as I mentioned, but it's not gonna be our main skill for very long. So use it the early leveling. Then at level 2 we're gonna get Summon Skeleton. Make sure to have 3 at a time. And don't forget, you can actually order them with A key to move and attack target at your cursor. Now, when we reach level 4, it's the moment where we actually gonna get Wandering Spirits. And that's gonna be the first skill we're gonna specialize into. Wandering Spirit is damage over time skill. When you cast it, you're gonna start revealing spirits around your character. So if you want to deal a lot of damage to bosses, you have to be actually close to them. And this deals damage over time, scales with necrotic damage, so everything we wanna do. Now, I usually start by putting 2 points in this node, and then it all depends. If you want to be very safe, you can travel for fear, which I usually do these days. And then there, you could actually go this way to get some poison. You could point 1 point here and then 1 more here. But I usually don't even bother with this because this will not be skill I'm gonna use for a long time. So I just drop all the rest of the points in more damage here. So that will be your early setup. At the moment you unlock your mastery, this skill gonna be actually replaced. But for now, this will be our setup. Now, at level 5, we'll be able to use Hungering Souls. It's a skill that deals pretty okay-ish damage. And we're gonna specialize into it at this point. This is gonna help a lot versus bossing. And the way we wanna spec into this one is we want to travel all the way here into this node. Unholy Trinity. Skill gonna deal 50% more damage if you have exactly 3 minions. So we want to dump all the points into this one. And this is where the progression for the skill actually gonna end, because it's gonna soon get replaced. And you probably can switch it into your main bar. You can still keep the Reblood if you want to get extra healing, but you're gonna be spamming Hungering Souls. Make sure you have always 3 minions and then cast Wandering Spirits when it's off cooldown. The nice thing about Wandering Spirits is like it's gonna reveal around your character. So when you move like this, you can see you leave trail of spirits behind you, and this is gonna annihilate anything that is chasing you. So as we continue our progression, we're gonna unlock Summon Bone Golem, which we're not gonna use in this setup, because that will go over the limit. Now, at level 7, before actually the Golem, you're gonna get access to the Bone Curse, which you could use. Bone Curse works with on-hit attacks. You curse enemy, and then when you start hitting, which you're gonna do with the skill, you're gonna deal extra damage. So it's not a bad skill, even if you're not specialized into it. Now, level 9, you're gonna unlock Transplant, which is your movement skill. It's gonna let you escape from very sketchy situations. Just have in mind that when you transplant, it actually costs your life. So as we level up, at level 15, we're gonna get access to Spirit Plague. This is the moment where we drop Hungering Spirits, so you just despecialize it, and then we go for the Spirit Plague. Spirit Plague is very strong leveling skill to let you deal a lot of damage and spread over enemies. So how I actually go for it, I drop 2 points here, then get the Plague Bearer, and then drop 3 points into Poison Penetration. This skill actually deals a lot of base damage early game. It will annihilate every single mob it encounters. After that, you can start focusing on more damage multipliers, drop 2 points into Rotten to the Core, and then 2 points into Consecrated Rot. So after we get those damage nodes here, we can start focusing on some defense. We're gonna travel for the frailty stacks here, and then we're gonna grab this node, giving us spell damage per intelligence. It's not gonna be huge damage increase, but for 1 point, it's gonna be very good either way. So at this point, we are at around 13-14 points spent in the tree here. What you can do from this point is probably investing into a second point into frailty stacks, then focusing on your damage, and then maybe grabbing the poison stack when you're gonna need it for Chtonic Fissure node, I'm gonna talk about later. Now, when I will reach monoliths, I will probably respec from those nodes and start getting the chance to spread and the ward gained on hit. So when we unlock the Spirit Plague, we can actually switch it to our main skill. Also, we don't need the skeletons anymore, we can actually switch to one big boy here, and that should be our setup for a while. At around level 20, you're gonna unlock your mastery, and we're gonna unlock the Warlock. Here's where Wandering Spirits gonna get replaced, and we're gonna use Chtonic Fissure. We will still have enough damage from Spirit Plague at this point, so that transition is not gonna be too painful. Now, here's a side tip for you guys. Always keep one high damage skill when you try to respec and experiment. If you're actually gonna despecialize everything, you're gonna end up with very poor damage, and you're probably gonna hate your leveling process. Because in early stages, getting XP to level up your skills is gonna be really slow. So always keep one. As you can see, this is the rule we're doing right now, so we're gonna be fine. So with the Chtonic Fissure, we want to travel left here and get some stacks of the Damned. Now, at this point, we're probably not gonna have enough Necrotic Resistance, so I will grab Necrotic Resistance stack. Now I can actually focus again on getting this maxed. You can grab second point in Necrotic Resistance stacks. At this point you're probably gonna lack a lot of damage for bossing, so you want to grab those 3 points below here. And after that you want to travel here to get more damage multiplier for the Torment. Now this not requires your enemy to be Ignite, Poison or Bleeding. Lucky for us, we can get this easily on the Spirit Plague. When you cast Spirit Plague, you also poison your enemy. So the moment you will start going that way on Chtonic Fissure, make sure to also start traveling here on the Spirit Plague. And this should be very strong setup. Of course, you can grab crit multi for necrotic damage for Torment later, and then focus on Spirit Frequency. And in an ultra late setup, when you will not have any mana problems, you can get even secondary Fissure. At level 20, we're gonna unlock another specialization slot, and you can go either Bone Curse, as I mentioned, or Transplant. I prefer Transplant for extra safety here. I feel guaranteed Bone Armor on Transplant is very good. I usually start by taking 3 points into Haste and Frenzy Duration. Haste is extra movement speed, Frenzy Duration is extra cast speed, which is very great for us. And then I will travel to grab the Bone Armor node. This gives us less damage taken and actually insane armor generation. It's like on a longer cooldown when you cast it, but it's very nice defensive mechanic very early. After this I will go for additional explosion, grab the Bone Curse on arrival, then get my kill threshold, and then I can focus on grabbing conversion to necrotic resistance and then fear. And the last point is gonna go into the bone armor lasting longer. Right, so at this point we're leveling our skills nicely. At 35 we're gonna unlock another specialization slot. This time we're gonna opt for Bone Curse. So the Bone Curse is additional curse, which means damage multi for us. but also it will trigger damage when enemy is hit, and we're gonna get our damage from Chtonic Fissure. Now the way how I spec into it early, we drop 4 points into the area, then we get Mark for Death. Mark for Death is another curse, and its effect is minus 25% all resistances on enemy. And in terms of Last Epoch, that means 25% more damage taken by them, so it's gonna be insane damage multiplier early. Then we can increase duration. The base duration here is 2 seconds. We can actually increase it to 4 seconds, which is much more manageable. You don't have to go for necrotic conversion early. You can skip this point and go for defense. And how I do this, I just grab all those 3 nodes here. Then we can actually go for conversion, and then I will wait before picking those 2 points until I have my Veil unlocked. So don't spec into this node until you have second point, and you can actually spec into this one, because reduced cooldown duration on this one is insanely good. And then the rest of the points gonna go into minion health. So our setup change again here. I will keep Wandering Spirits even though they are not specialized. The damage they deal is not gonna be insane, but it's still gonna be decent, and we can replace the Bone Golem with Chtonic Fissure. And then as we progress, we're gonna put more and more points into the Warlock passive tree, and at one point unlock the Profane Veil. So this is the moment where we can actually switch the spirits for the Veil. It's a very strong defensive ability. It lets you dodge all the hits, so put it there as soon as you can. And then when you reach level 50, specialize into this insane monstrosity of a skill. So when it comes to Veil, we wanna maximize our defensive capabilities. We can't spend too many points early, so I think 2 points into minion consumption should be enough. Then we're gonna go this way for insane damage multi when we use Veil. Then probably drop at least 1 point into the cooldown reduction. You may grab the armor applying to dot at this point, and then try maximizing this node. Then you can grab Cleanse, start traveling here, grab extra Curse, and travel to the secondary Veil, and then Bone Curse when you enter and exit Profane Veil. This will skyrocket your damage and make clear a bit faster. And then of course dropping more points into Vampiring Pool is gonna be nice. Alright, and that's all when it comes to how I level up using skills. Alright, so the last thing to talk about here are passives, and again, we're gonna invest into some nodes that we're gonna respec later. But first things first, let's start from the beginning. So first node is gonna be armor node here. I start with this one, extra safety early, so we don't have to make new character right away. And then I will try to alternate between those 2 nodes. This one gives us 1 int, which for the most spells we're using, int is the scaling factor, and 1 intelligence will give us 4 increased damage. So you can easily compare it to this node that gives us only 6. I'm gonna alternate between those 2 until we unlock Hungering Spirits, and then we have access to Vitality. At this point, dropping few points here is probably a good idea, and then we can go back to alternating between those 3, depending on what we're missing the most in the build right now. If we have a lot of HP on the items, we can start alternating between armor and more damage. If we're missing HP, we can go for HP and this node. It's very good to actually alternate, so our damage will not fall off too much. In this case, let's assume that we were able to go even here. In the final build, I will have 6 points in this one, so this is where we're gonna end up here. And most likely, this will be the final skill tree when we're gonna pick up our mastery. Now, we're not gonna start with the Warlock mastery. What I really like to do here is just to play it safe. And there's very nice node here that gives us health and spell damage leech as health. So exactly what we need here. The amounts of points you can invest here actually varies. I really like maxing this one out and then actually turning my eye towards the Warlock. Safe way of starting here is getting extra health and damage. After that, you can probably grab extra points into spell damage for curses, which is gonna increase your clear a lot. So at this point, you can see we spent 39 points into passive skill tree, which means we should be in chapter 6 or chapter 7. Either way, at this point of the game, armor is still very nice. This node is good, it gives us HP and armor, so getting 5 points here is just a no-brainer. Now this is the point I feel like going actually for that mana node is not the end of the world. So we can put 5 points here, so we unlock the secondary bonus, which is chance per curse to gain 30 mana on 3-second cooldown. So now you can see we are 49 points in. which means that you are probably killing Lagon right now, or maybe you are in chapter 9. So this is the moment where we can start preparing for the transition for word per second. So we can start with this node that gives us 25% word per second, but also less damage taken per curse on target. Very strong node that will make your character very, very tanky. Now you can see we are starting to get very close to getting our Profane Veil. So what you can do at this point in the game is going back to the passive respec vendor and remove all those points you actually invested into the Lich Mastery and go to the Warlock Mastery and instead drop 6 in this one. It's less Lich, less HP, but at this point you should be tanky enough, and we're just gonna make sure that the Profane Veil gonna be unlocked as soon as we can. To mitigate the problem of lost HP, we can drop 2 points into Vitality Intelligence node that's gonna buff our damage and survivability a bit again. And then this is the moment when we unlock Profane Veil and start speccing into it, making sure we are getting that minion consumption going. Now at this point, because I still don't rely on ward so much, I probably miss some points in the Bond Curse to make it happen. I will invest more into Vitality and Int, and from now on it starts to making transition into the ward. This is very important setup, especially if you started working on your necrotic resistance. This will guarantee your ward decay threshold is much higher. Also you're gonna get some ward on kill, plus extra ward while channeling the Profane Veil. Also this is the moment where you have to actually start respecking a bit.
Hello, traveler.
You can safely remove those first 5 points into this skill. Yes, we're losing some HP, the damage over time loss is very insignificant, same for that more damage there. And this is probably the moment where you can start thinking about respecking from this node. This is very situational again. It all depends how much ward you get by consuming minions with Profane Veil. If you don't have any other source of increased minion health, this is very significant bonus early. But as soon as you can respec from this one and start going here at the bottom, the better for your build. So you will have to first invest some points here, and then of course respecking the rest. With all of this being taken care of, I still would probably hang on Lich just in case. It all is very situational and depends on how much ward generation you actually have. It also depends if you will find Barbute Helmet early or Ghostmaker. Either way, the moment when you will start generating a lot of ward, and by that I mean 4-5k ward, you're probably not gonna ever rely on Health Leech again, so you can definitely remove those points. And then it's just normal progression of the build. You basically are speccing to the points I have shown in my guide, so just follow that one. I usually max this one to get extra defense, then we can max this one for extra damage, 2 points here, then we get spell damage, and as you can see we are starting to run very low on points. If mana is still a problem, grabbing 10 points in the int is probably a very good idea. If everything is going very smooth for the build, then we can invest into the haste. And then those are like leftover points. You can start investing into Doom Herald earlier here. This is insanely good damage multi. Then we probably can get extra mana, and with leftover points, I'm still missing a lot of points in this build, so you see actually more missing that I have. But yeah, probably getting this mana here and then extra dump points here. So yeah, this is basically all I do when leveling in hardcore. I hope it was helpful to you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'm gonna catch you on the next one.